We're going to call the July 19th meeting to order. Roll call.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Baculot?
Here.
Mr. Murray?
Here.
Mrs. Kiefer?
Here. This time we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, does anyone desire to add, delete, or separate any items of the consent agenda as proposed? No? All right, I need a motion to approve the meeting agenda as presented for the regular board meeting on July 19th, 2021.
So moved. Support.
Roll call.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Baculot?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mrs. Kiefer?
Yes, motion carries. I need a motion to approve the meetings of the regular board meeting held on June 21st of 2021.
So moved. Support.
Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Baculot?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Kiefer?
Yes, motion carries. At this time, is there any board members with correspondence? All right, Mr. Carroll? Mr. Smola?
Yes, I received a notice of resignation from Carol Kriege for effective date of August 10th. She plans to retire. And also a letter of resignation from Mrs. Lisa Peluso with a resignation date effective August 5th. We have a few visitors with us today. I'd ask that you please introduce yourself quickly.
Thank you. At this time, we have Mr. Hansel, president of the Mini Viking Parents Club, to he requested to present us a project they had.
Spirit. It needs some to pep it up and give us the Viking power and strength when we play our board, to see if they were in favor of maybe doing some signs to the roof. Mock-ups from a company, A to Z Design in Delta. He's a local, our local businesses. Packets for everybody if you'd like to look at.
Yeah. Thank you.
Obviously, we're willing to finance everything. We just need your permission to do it. Signs will not agree that this is a project you support. We would but on our side, we just figured maybe liability. You guys do it, so everything's roof. I think it's a metal roof, so whatever we think we need to keep them from blowing away. So from every angle, you'll get the Evergreen feel while you're sitting either at the, even driving on the road, you can see it perfectly from the road. Planes flying by, they'll know it's Evergreen Vikings fields. So I know we have a tower, but this is just another thing that, will be nice and visible for everyone to see that they're in Viking country. So we've already got the funding, we've already got everything ready to go. We just need your blessing or not your blessing, and we won't do it. So questions? But like I said, our guy, so if this is okay with, install it, or we can find somebody. It's up to you guys.
For knowledge, how much is the project?
4,500. That'd be for both roofs and ends with the signs.
I like them. They look nice. Um, oh.
And great printer, so I assure you it's yellow and green
Um,
in some areas, but it's yellow and green.
my only question would be if we would want our maintenance department to do them, or if we would want to get somebody to install them.
My concern with the metal roof is what do we need to attach them down to not compromise the integrity of the roof?
Right.
But,
Yeah.
but I think either way, it would be us installing. Right? We don't want MVP to install.
Well, they would hire somebody to install,
Okay, yeah,
right, Ryan?
Yeah, whichever you guys prefer.
Okay.
okay.
I love the designs. I guess at this point, it's just installing. How does the board feel? When you,
When will these be completed? Like,
I told him after the meeting, and I don't know how long it will take him to fabricate. He says he's ready to go. So I'm sorry, I can't really give you exact time frame, but he's ready to go once I text him saying yes or no.
So presumably before the start of the school.
That'd be our hope, yes.
I like them. I don't have any issues with it at all.
Yeah.
I like just the install.
Yeah, I know nothing about construction and installing that kind of stuff, so I defer to what you want.
You get it. Right.
I say it would be 18 with each letter, 18 different items that would have to be put up. So that's a bit.
Installing the ends, I don't see as a problem. It's on the roof. And once we
Yeah.
do a little research, I would say if we can do it, absolutely, I think we should. Save the cost of hiring someone. I just don't know what we're going to need to connect to the metal roof.
Is that fair? We'll get.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's
Yep. So I would say the board is happy with your proposal, and we'll back that up, and then we'll talk about we'll do the 2 Viking heads through maintenance. Then once we talk to Mr. Miller, we can know.
so it's a yes, just logistics on doing it, getting it done.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Mr. Ansel.
We appreciate all you do for the Vikings.
I mean, we don't know what you guys ideas too. Come to us, and we definitely consider them. And we love helping out. So we just don't know what you need sometimes. So
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. At this time, Mr. Carroll, would you like to go over your financial report?
Yes, thank you. All right, you will see your normal month-end reports, the cash reconciliation report, followed by the disbursement summary, our cash summary, and the financial summary. There's a couple things that I wanted to kind of draw attention to are the colored graphs here. At the end of each year, we take some funds or grants and we reallocate those funds back to the general fund. So if you see on the payroll graph for June, you'll see that it was a decline of negative 23.5%. That's just because we took funds out of the grants that we had and put them back into the general fund. And that was the plan the whole year. And that's very typical. We'll do that again this year. So that number stood out, and I just wanted to bring your attention to it. On the general fund graph, another number that sticks out, the advances in under the revenue, it's up, it says 557%. That's just because of funding when we return the advances from food service and athletics. We did receive our E-rate reimbursement, and that is through our technology department. And it was not as much as we got last year, but more than we were expecting. So that's why it has a large increase. And overall cash balance up for various reasons. We did receive some federal grants this year. with cutbacks, with COVID-related expenses, trying to cut back a little bit, and those grants, we were able to have a higher cash balance compared to last year, ending June.
Any questions for Mr. Carroll?
Why do you look at me all the time? For year end, I was just curious, the two divisions that are supposed to be self-sustaining that we've had to supplement in the last few years have been athletics and food service. How did we end up the year with those? Do you know offhand?
I will have to get you exact numbers.
Mhm.
Athletics was pretty close to breaking even. We
Okay.
still last month we did a transfer of funds to get them to break even, and also some startup cash. And food service, I will have to get back with you on for
Okay.
closer numbers.
Just curious because I know athletics was really difficult this past year because of COVID, and we put in a lot of tension on food service lately. So I was just curious where we ended up. Thank you.
And for athletics, they did a really good job this year, going through everything and adapting. That it wasn't as bad as what I think we thought it was going to be. So props to our athletic department.
Thank you.
Yep. As far as the reduction in force, I think Mr. Smola could probably give more details on that because that would be prior to when I got here. I know there were some things that we just kind of paused on, and the athletic facility would be one that we just pumped the brakes on. But overall, I think it was just doing our due diligence and being smart with our money, just to kind of see how things played out.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Carroll? All right, we're going to move on to the financial section of our agenda. We will need a motion to approve the June 2021 financial. Also need a motion to approve fund-to-fund transfers for the remaining fund balance of $446.59 from the class of 2021 into the class of 2022. We need to approve the certificate of total amount for all sources available for expenditures and balances for the fiscal year ending June 30th of 2021. We need to approve the following petty cash and change funds for the 2021-2022 school year. Athletic petty cash, 4,500, increased from 3,000 approved December of 2020. Central office petty cash of 50, office petty cash 50 per school building, and athletic change fund of 3,000. We need to approve the following federal grants for the 2021-2022 school year. Title 2A, supporting effective instruction of $25,292.48. Title 4A, student support and academic enrichment, $10,000. IDEAB, special education of $267,601.76. ECSE, early childhood special education of $6,283.94, as well as accepting the following donations of $100 anonymous donation to the Student Assistance Fund and a $4,000 from Evergreen After Prom to the class of 2023. I just need a motion to approve the preceding financial motions, reports, and other financial items.
So move. Support.
Questions or discussion? All right, roll call.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Baculot,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Mrs. Kiefer.
Yes, motion carries. We move on to personnel. We need to accept the following resignations for Carol Kriege, effective August 10th, Lisa Peluso, effective August 5th. We need to offer the following non-teaching 1 year for the middle school secretary. Is that correct? Middle school?
Correct.
Okay. To offer the following supplemental contracts and approve volunteers for the 2021-2022 school year, pending the completion of all people activity permits for Cora Overfield, middle school cheer coach. We need to approve an increase in hours effective the start of the 2021-2022 school year for Connie Snyder. Library age is going to increase by 2.5 hours per week, and Kathleen Alvey, high school library aide, increased to 12.5 hours per week. We need to approve the following high school and middle school paid and/or volunteer event workers for the 2021-2022 school year. Help me out with the first name. Marciana Cervantes. Okay. Steve Feedback, Jared Walker, Rusty Carr, and Rochelle Van Lukey. At this time, I just need a motion to approve the above listed personnel positions.
So moved. Support.
Any questions or discussion? All right, roll call.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Vakulik,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Mrs. Kiefer.
Yes, motion carries. This time we will move on to other business. We need a motion to approve a shared service agreement by and between the Fulton County School District's Board of Education, Archibald, Delta, Fayette, Pettysville, Swanton, and Wasion to share transportation services to educational settings, extracurricular events, and activities where appropriate to reduce transportation expenditures and save resources.
So moved.
Support.
Questions or discussion?
This is the one where if a bus breaks down or something we can take our bus down. It's like if Archibald's bus breaks down at Central and 6, we can take our bus down to get them, right?
Correct.
Basically.
We had approved this in September of 2019 for athletics only, just expanding it
Okay.
to any activity as a precautionary measure.
Thank you.
Have we ever done it yet?
It has happened, I think we have done it once, but multiple times with other districts in Fulton County. We
Good.
needed it.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Vakulik,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Mrs. Kiefer.
Yes, motion carries. We need a motion to approve school bus stops as recommended by the superintendent and the transportation coordinator. Bus routes and stops are on file with the transportation department. The board further authorizes the superintendent and or his designee to change board approved stops whenever necessary for the 21-22 school year.
So move.
Support.
Questions or discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Vakulik,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Mrs. Kiefer.
Yes, motion carries. We need a motion to approve the revised Evergreen facility usage fee schedule for all school buildings for the 21-22 school year and beyond.
So moved.
Support.
Questions or discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Vakulik,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Mrs. Kiefer.
Motion carries. We need a motion to approve the revisions to Evergreen Local Schools Athletic Handbook and Student Athlete Handbooks effective on adoption.
So moved.
Support.
Questions and discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Vakulik,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Mrs. Kiefer.
Yes, motion carries. The Evergreen Elementary School, Evergreen Middle School, and Evergreen school year as recommended by the administrators.
So move.
Support.
Questions and discussion?
At one point in time, these were separate. Are they still separate handbooks for each building?
They are. We are working towards getting a common one for all buildings.
Okay.
But there are aspects at the elementary that do not apply to the high school.
I knew
so-
that was the goal when we had discussed it before, was to try to streamline it as much as possible and have it be uniform from building to building as much as possible.
Correct. We're not there yet.
Roll call.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Vakulik,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Mrs. Kiefer.
Yes, motion carries. We need a motion to enter into an agreement with AmeriGas Propane to purchase propane at the company's local area index plus 25 cents per gallon, plus all applicable taxes, fees, and charges for the period of August 1st of 2021 through July 31st of 2022.
So moved.
Support.
Questions and discussion?
We still check around.
We did. We got 3 prices before going with AmeriGas.
All right.
Is this an increase from last year's?
It is up. The how was it worded? The area local index is up. The amount above that is down.
Were the other quotes we got tied to the local area index, or were they not tied to that?
One was tied to it, one was not.
Roll call.
Mr. Miller? Yes. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Baculett?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mrs. Kiefer?
Yes, motion carries. This time we need a motion to revise District Policy 5530.01 drug testing to expand drug testing protocols to include high school students involved in all extracurricular and co-curricular activities.
So moved.
Support.
Questions and discussion?
I'm assuming then, I think we're going to revise this then because obviously the band doesn't play games. And so we have to figure out what's a fair punishment for people that test positive, correct?
Yes. So from this, we're just expanding the kids that are able to be tested. We will not be expanding how many kids are tested a month. We will stay, so the cost of the testing to the school will stay the same with 20 kids tested per month, correct? 20. So that doesn't change. It's just trying to broaden that pool. And then yes, like you said, so to keep the consequences equal, we'll have to look at that between band and football and everything else to see how we're going to do that. If it's a, more of a date like 25% or something like that. But that will all be coming up as probably next.
There will be another step of
Yep.
revising the language in the actual policy that the board will then have to approve the policy revisions. Right now, you're agreeing that we're going to expand it, and then we'll work through the details of what that looks like and bring it back to the board for approval.
Okay.
We may want to consider, and again, it's something to consider, not something I'm saying I agree with at this point. We may want to consider expanding the number monthly, the monthly number that are tested, because I mean, the odds of losing the lottery at this point are set. But if you expand the pool by 2 times or 3 times, all of a sudden, the odds of you getting drawn are considerably less.
When we talked about that, we're assuming that this is probably going to pull in about 90% of the kids that will be testing just between every activity that they're doing. But we know how Evergreen is, so we have a high school of 350 maybe. And we know Nora Kiefer's in cheerleading and she's in band and she's in FCC. You know what I mean? So we're not making our pool that much larger. So I think we need to look at numbers and what it looks like, and then maybe.
Yeah. Like I said, I just if we're doubling the pool of people to test, we may want to consider increasing the amount of tests. Not saying we're going to or anything. I just think it's something we should look at.
Do they do it in pods? Like, say we do 20, right? So is the next step maybe 30 or 40? Yeah. So there's no set number of a pod.
So if we wanted to do, say, 20 twice a month instead of 20 once a month, I'm just saying that really throws a curveball to the people being tested. That we test in the first week, everyone knows the next 3 weeks. Theoretically, there's not going to be a test. So if we double the times that we test per month, and I know it's a holy pain in the rear, but boy, it may keep some students more honest that way.
It's 20 at one time.
Right
20
now,
in a
it's
single
one time
pod.
per, to my understanding, one time per month, 20. Yeah. But like I said, I'm telling you right now, the students know that if there's a test first week, they at least feel like they're relieved of the possibility of testing for the next 3 weeks.
I know one issue that was brought to light was educational disruption. Trying to limit educational disruption, pulling kids from class, because it is about a 2-hour process. Once we begin a drug testing pod of 20, it's about a 2-hour process from start to finish. So to double that would obviously pull kids potentially at least at times could be 4 hours a month.
But theoretically, it wouldn't be the same kids.
Theoretically, no, but the chances of multiples being drawn is higher, I would have to guess. Potentially, I know we tested in a smaller pool athletic wise. Some kids were tested 3, 4. I had one individual was tested 5 times this year. So he was pulled out of class for 2 hours each time that he was selected.
Gotcha. Like I said, all things to, I think, discuss when we're looking at the revision of the policy.
as for the concerns we had with the keeping it, what do we say,
Confidential.
more confidential, we're going to work on that on the administrative side and see how we can do this if we're not, if we're taking kids maybe to different locations or something like that, trying to figure out how we can do that so it's more confidential and we don't have kids knowing who the other, 19 were or whatever.
Yeah, and with the athletic expansion, maybe for next year, we will have more space to where we can kind of isolate and contain pods that would be a little more out of sight. But for this coming year, we're obviously going to be tight anywhere we go down at that end of the building.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'd like us when something else kind of off of Don's point then. I guess while we're looking at this and figuring out the best way to implement it, I think we need to look at the consequences as well. I think, I mean, if you've got a kid testing positive for anything, the answer is to bring them in closer, not push them away. So I'd much rather see a program that focuses on an education or remediation component with the first positive test. I don't know if that's doable. I don't know what it costs. But I think it's worthwhile for the kids. I mean, if we are going to test and we are going to know, you can't, once you take the natty out of the paper bag, it's a natty. So, I mean, we have to do something with it once we have that information. And I think we owe these kids something in addition to what they owe us. So I'd like us to explore, again, how do we fix their behavior without punitive measures, at least on the front end. That's
I
my
agree,
view.
and there are districts that have an educational requirement with a first positive. So they're,
I believe right now, with the first positive here, you can reduce your punishment if you get treatment of some sort. So we're already working in that direction. But I agree. It would be worthwhile to continue in that direction or maybe expand in that direction.
Currently, with the first positive test, you're at 100% suspension. You are able to roll back to a 25% suspension with that of a completion of Fulton County Health Department approved cessation program or a drug awareness program that's approved by that of Fulton County Health Department. There are local school districts in our area. First positive test is educational based. Any additional positive tests would then result in that of disciplinary action on their extracurricular.
On a related note, not concerned with this vote, but we had talked about vape detectors. Do you know if anything's been done with that?
I've got research and the quote is requested. So
Thank you.
with the new ones we're looking at, one would cover a restroom. So that is, the technology is better than it was a couple years ago. So it's very doable and we're pursuing it.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, roll call.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Vaculett?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mrs. Kiefer?
Yes, motion carries. This time we need a motion to approve the following overnight trip for the Evergreen girls soccer team to participate in the Lima Bath Super Scrimmage at Lima Bath High School. The trip gives the team the opportunity to play in a super scrimmage and participate in team bonding overnight. The team will be staying at the Howard Johnson Hotel in Lima, Ohio. The team will depart on August 6th and return on August 7th. Coaches Radel and Ott will be trip supervisors in addition to parent chaperones. Please note the estimated cost for the trip is $1,360, and this will be paid using funds raised by the Evergreen Girls Soccer Fundraising Account.
So moved.
Sport.
Questions and discussion?
Do you know how they're getting there?
I believe parents.
So the parents are- all right.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Vaculett?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mrs. Kiefer?
Yes, motion carries. At this time, Mr. Smola, would you like to continue with discussion and information?
I wanted to give an update on the renovation and expansion project. The high school weight room and locker room, it's underway and currently on schedule. The north end demolition is complete. Interior walls in the north end are currently being built. Underground plumbing for the expansion on the north end is in place. Roof drains have been tied into the sewer system. The old dumpster pad has been removed and the new pad has been poured. The fencing around the construction area will be installed before school starts in August. Right now, crews are waiting on steel for the footer of the exterior walls. When the steel arrives, the exterior wall construction will begin on both the north and the south end. So up to this point on schedule. We'll see when that steel comes. Now is the time where we could get off schedule a little bit, waiting on materials. Questions on the renovation? The next item, looking ahead to the reopening for the next school year. Look forward to getting students back on campus. We have safety protocols in place, and our hope is to return to school both in person and as normal as possible while remaining flexible to the current COVID situation. On July 30th, the Fulton County superintendents are scheduled to meet to discuss COVID protocols in order to ensure consistency countywide, that we're all coming back operating the same way. New laws and guidelines are still being created, such as the governor's recently signed into law House Bill 244, which prohibits districts from discriminating against unvaccinated individuals. We will adjust district protocols to comply with all legal requirements. Our plans may need to change as the school year progresses to align with various agency mandates, along with the monitoring of COVID numbers in our community as determined by the health department. At this time, we're planning to reopen as in years prior to 2020. We're looking forward to reconnecting with our community and families. We're eager to reopen our buildings, offer volunteer opportunities, allow parents and guardians into the classrooms, send students on field trips, and host traditional events at full capacity. So if things continue the way they are, we'll go back to what used to be a normal looking school year, and that is our intent. Any questions?
Fingers crossed.
Current rules concerning masks, because I've gotten this question from students. Are we going to have to wear masks when we go back to school? I said it depends on what the state regulations are.
Right now, the answer is we would recommend them, but not require them.
Okay.
Any further questions for Mr. Samola? All right, Mr. Stu.
All right. Well, first and foremost, thank you guys for letting me have the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My focus for this opportunity to speak is going to be on Evergreen Youth Sports. I know when we held our athletic community forum, something that came from that and really, sparked a drive within myself was that of our youth sports program and how we can better that and how we can improve that. I think we have a lot of great individuals doing a lot of great things, but I think we can organize it, condense it, put our efforts together and do something a little bit, more productive in the sense of youth sports. So with that, what are our separate sport entities currently? We have the EYA, the Evergreen Youth Association, which is handling all youth baseball and softball. We have the Viking Soccer Club, Boys and Girls Youth Soccer, Viking Legends, which is our youth football program, Evergreen Wrestling Club, youth wrestling, and then Mini Vikes, which is our youth boys and girls basketball programs. All of these entities are running individually, and they operate on their own tail underneath whoever happens to be the head of that association. So things that we do well. One definite is we have phenomenal and dedicated coaches, parents, and youth. Our countless amount of volunteer hours that are put in by our community, the amount of time that we have varsity coaches that are trying to coach a varsity season, but also run a youth program while they're trying to coach their varsity season, taking additional time from their families just for the betterment of Evergreen Youth. I mean, it's unbelievable. The amount of kids that we have that are excited to participate in youth sports, I would say is bar none compared to anywhere else. We have a lot of kids that are excited to participate. Also providing opportunities for the youth to be introduced to sports, being introduced to a sports education-based program. And what does that do when you're introduced to sports at a youth level? Well, obviously it's going to develop teamwork, but more importantly, leadership, self-confidence. It's going to improve self-discipline and also coping skills, right? You're all going to, at one point in time, there's somebody better than you and you're going to take a loss. You're going to have to understand how to bounce back and grow from that. But areas that I think that we can improve on, well, organization of those opportunities. I think that we can provide a single umbrella for all of our youth sports. And I also think we can have condensed effort for one common goal. Now, as the athletic director for 7th to 12th grade, I'm passionate about the whole student. I'm passionate about kids. I want to see what's best for kids, and that's why I'm up here giving this presentation today, because I think it benefits kids as a whole, and that's what I want to see happen. So how do we move forward? Well, one, consolidate our efforts, identify an existing group or organization that can house all of our Evergreen youth sports activities together, identify and create a mission statement and bylaws that are going to be able to encompass all of those sports. Lastly, identify and create a structure that would include a president, aka youth sports coordinator, board of directors, and a commissioner of each sport represented within our youth sports programs. So what is that organizational group? Well, I feel that's the EYA. I think we already have a group in place within Evergreen that can house. I've read and picked apart their bylaws. They were originally intended and developed to be that of a single umbrella of all youth sports for Evergreen. But since then, it's kind of been factioned off and branched off in different areas. I think we just need to bring that back to the EYA. EYA is going to have the rights to use the Evergreen name. They'll have the right for the mascot, the logo, and have preference to grounds and facilities. Let's say a group says, you know what, I don't want to be a part of that. I want to do it on my own. I want to do it independently. I feel that if a group or team wished to be independent, they'd lose those rights and privileges to the use of our name and our mascot and things of that nature to help encompass that unity of a single youth program. EYA board of directors and commissioners, what are some non-negotiables that they're going to take care of? Well, one is going to be carrying liability insurance and also be that of a nonprofit. They're going to carry their 501c3, which the EYA already does. They also carry liability insurance for their athletes that are taking place. They're going to find venues and officials for their games, organize and raise money. They're going to operate a website, promote the league, and recruit help, hire coaches, register participants, create teams, organize schedules, order uniforms and equipment. Okay? Any questions so far before I keep moving? So what does that structure look like? This is something I put together. EYA president is going to be, in a sense, the youth athletic director, right? The youth sports commissioner, the youth sports coordinator. They're going to oversee everything that's happening at the youth level, kindergarten to 6th grade. Underneath that person, there'll be a voting member as well with the board of directors, which would be your vice president, your treasurer, your secretary, and sergeant at arms or member at large. Typically, you always obviously want an odd number so that you don't have a hung vote. Commissioners, this is currently what we have. We'd have a commissioner for baseball, commissioner for softball, soccer, football, wrestling, girls basketball, boys basketball, and any additional teams. Bowling wants to have some representation at the youth level and have a youth club. Absolutely, let's get them on. They just need a commissioner to oversee their sport. If it's cross country, track, wherever it may fall, cheer, whatever it might be, we can obviously house that within the EYA. They would just need a commissioner to oversee their sport. From there, youth coaches, parent volunteers, and that of the student athlete. The important topic, funding, right? Where does the money come from? Well, I looked at funding. I looked at the endeavor itself, how much that endeavor may take. And the estimated cost currently, if it was a fully funded endeavor, would be about $75,000 a year. And what would that cover? Well, they would cover all stipends, equipment, uniforms, officials, rental costs, liability insurances. If fully funded, it obviously keep registration costs low for families, especially reducing the economic impact on large families. There is a nearby school district that does currently appropriate $70,000 in their budget for that of rec programs. If partially funded, say $40,000, EYA would then be covered in regards to that organizational stipends and coaches. Registrations costs would obviously help offset that. Of the costs associated with equipment, uniforms, officials, rental costs, liability insurance, that's estimated about $35,000. If it wasn't a funded project whatsoever, it was all volunteer-based, we would obviously rely on volunteers to run the organization, coach, and in turn have higher registration fees to offset any necessary costs as listed above. If fully funded endeavor, this happens to be a breakdown of what I think potential expenditures could be. Obviously, this would have to be tweaked and worked out a little bit differently. But that of the EYA president, that would be a full-time, not full-time as in 40 hours a week, but a year-round position to where they'd be overseeing that of youth sports from start to finish, fall through spring. $6,500, board of directors, treasurer, $3,500, vice president, secretary, member at large, $1,000 stipend. The reason that I have those numbers there simply because skin in the game creates investment in the game, creates continuity, less turnover. That's what we don't want to see. People get burned out, people get tired of it. We want to incentivize them to pour some effort into it. Each commissioner would receive a $1,500 stipend. Head coach per season, once again, it could be adjusted one way or the other, but $500 per season coached, right? If your season's only say a 4-week season, potentially that $500 isn't going to be applicable to you. But if you're, running a soccer season or baseball season that might go 12, 14 so weeks, well then, that could be obviously delineated to whatever number needed. EYA stipends in total, for that of, I think I equated to that of like 32 coaches at the youth level would be an estimation of around $40,000 a year. Additional cost, equipment, uniforms, officials, paint, field care, things of that nature, estimated around $35,000 for that grand total of $75,000. And I guess one of the big things, where does the funding come from? Does it come from Evergreen local schools? Does it come from local villages? Does it come from community donations, businesses, grants? How do we fund this? How do we get this off the ground for kids? I don't have that answer yet. I don't know. That's why I'm bringing it to you to have that discussion. Do we speak with that of local villages to see, are they willing to put skin in the game? Is X amount of dollars, potentially allocated from that of the schools, and the additional is brought by EYA through fundraising efforts, or is it brought through local villages for X amount of dollars? Those things would need to be talked about and worked out. So lastly, just want to say thank you. Any additional questions, comments, concerns? I just look forward to seeing the future of Evergreen Youth Sports developed and grown.
I think if we get something drawn up, like you got, get it out to the community, that's probably the number one place to look for donations or whatever. I mean, we had the forum. We talked about what we need to do to stay where we're at, how to build it, how to centralize it and all that. And then the big thing is get out to the community. Something drawn up on paper, what you're looking for, possibly what the community can do to help.
Absolutely.
Something that we take to a village meeting. I will attend that with you. Let me know if that's something we need to go.
Yep.
Have you reached out to EYA leaders?
Yep, absolutely. And I've had multiple meetings with Trevor Schindorf, who's the current EYA president. He's 100% on board for that. He wants to see EYA grow, but he also at the same time wants to see that continuity within our youth programs. And he himself, he's the current president, but he understands that the position, would be a voted upon position to where, he could potentially be voted out. And he is 100% okay with that. He wants to be a fair thing. He wants whoever is supported to be in that position. He obviously himself wants to be in that position if possible, but once again, he wants to be a fair election to where if somebody else is willing to step up and take it on, they're more than welcome.
So I would say, I think for me, we try to pull the villages together first. I would think the first logical step, see what they're willing to put into this program. And then from there, we have the EYA, we have an existing EYA, let's see what they, can we pull funds. Well, all these other small groups also have some funds. So what does that all look like when it comes together? And then I am not totally against us budgeting some sort of number. I don't think the whole project would come from the school, but I think we could easily fund a portion of the project.
And if you put it out there like a match, we can get so much from villages or whatever. We'll match, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think this is something that benefits the entire community. I mean, that's really what we're talking about here. So I don't think there's any problem with having stakeholders in every village and the township level. And I think that absolutely we should chip in something on this too. But I think it should be a community investment. I mean, this is just like painting the house as far as I'm concerned. So
I think our first step would probably be trying to get into some meetings. And you want me to reach out? I can do that.
Yeah.
Would you like to? Lions?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Chesterfield Township too. I think we want to do townships too. Yeah, for the villages. Yeah. And I'm happy to go to meetings as well.
And I also know as long as I can reach out with Trevor, as long as he can get it to his schedule, he would 100% be on board, being a part of that from the representative from the EYA side as well.
I know I have had alumni reach out to me and tell me that if we're going to do something along a youth sports program, that they would work on fundraising, on our behalf for specifically for that. So I will reach back out to those people and say, hey, this is what's potentially coming. How can you help?
Yep. And that's the thing. I just want to kind of put a number out there. Is that number concrete? Not at all estimate. But at the same time, just to at least get us a starting point of where we could be.
Would that cover all like uniforms and everything?
Potentially. I don't want to say yes,
Yeah,
potentially.
Because I know the cost went up while my kids were in EYA. The United Way was funding a fair amount of it for a while. Then that went away, and I was not involved enough to know why that happened. But the fees got pretty steep for a while.
Mhm.
But I don't necessarily think that's all bad. I think it's good to have parents and kids to have at least some skin in the game. You know what I
Sure.
mean? So I think that might be, if we could keep it minimal, I think that would be great. But I don't think it's necessarily bad to have some skin in the game too.
I agree. And it helps with attendance and volunteering and being a part of that program, being bought in. One thing also, having, say, paid board members or paid board of directors, that could potentially be something that they seek out is grant writing, right? They could write grants. They could apply for different things through United Way or nonprofit organizations that could help offset or fund some things throughout the EYA structure.
What's your timeline on it?
I mean, we have soccer starting here very soon. We've got, Viking Legends kicking off here soon. We've got, a lot of our fall going and starting already. Ideally, I would love to see it in place by next fall at the latest. I would like to see it rolling and going by next fall at the latest.
Yes, like Mr. Vega said, obviously the community supports it, so I think we all kind of agree that if the school needs to take on some of it or most of it or all of it right now, I think we need to move forward on it.
Mhm.
I think you have our support with that, but I do agree that it should at least reach out to the communities, see if we split the cost initially, and then once it starts rolling, right, then you can get your donations, you can get more people involved. Just getting that initial kickoff is going to be the hardest part. I think we're all supportive of that.
And I have been meeting with a group. We didn't meet in July, kind of gave some time off in July, but Positive Progress Initiative. And with that Positive Progress Initiative, it's ideally bringing people that have young student athletes that are dedicated, that are a part of, the youth organizations already. And I've got about 35 people on board in regard to that. And part of the job, some of the delineation of job that I gave with that was that of fundraising, hosting community events, even creating that of a welcoming wagon, having people go out to our local community members as we get new enrollees to give them the idea and the sense of what we offer at the youth sport level for that of Evergreen Athletics. And I've got, at least a dozen people willing to go out in the community and knock on doors and welcome people to our community, new people to our community and existing people that might not understand or know what opportunities they do have. But I think having a condensed concerted effort would help improve that as well.
Has there been talk about who becomes the session with EYA? Because that village is going to be, that's going to be one of the number one questions. Who's in charge? The Lions might want to do theirs, Benmore needs the EYA. I mean, every village could be different.
I did Benmore's this year, and I've done it many years in the past. And the villages are just very difficult to work with as at the EYA level.
Therefore, I mean,
It's just really hard because they want you to pay for the health department fees, and there's a lot of fees caught up in that. So, and there's not a lot of money to be made unless you have volunteers, and that's the problem. We never got the volunteers, so you have to pay kids to do it, and you might as well not even have one because you're paying it. So that's an issue. It can probably be run better if you can get the village's support, but it's going to have to make money. It has to be volunteer based.
Yep.
And we haven't been able to successfully run it as a volunteer. I know Lions has mainly been maybe like a Girl Scout troop in the past. EYA's always had Metamora,
Mhm.
so it's just not profitable unless you get volunteers. As you know, it's hard to get volunteers.
So the Girl
100%.
Scouts take all the money and
They did Lions. They made a deal with Lions, and they did what they did. And then we we made a deal with Metamora that we would, this year was different because of COVID, but we didn't have to pay the health department fees because we didn't sell real food. But
Now with your father donating his time mowing lawns, I know Trevor doing a lot of work up there. Is that something they're willing to trade off maybe is cost of concession for that of volunteer hours given and
Yeah,
things of that
because,
nature
Dad
potentially?
does it- I mean, at the end of the year, they give him $300 gift card. I mean, he does
Yeah.
it, to go up there and make the park look nice.
Yep.
His
And that's
thing
what this
every
is
day.
all about, right? Is building community and building that Evergreen brand and understanding that we're a consolidated effort.
Schrader's kids came up and lined the field.
Okay.
I know the EYA pays kids to do all the field maintenance.
Mhm.
And then the town has a helper who does kind of like washing picnic tables, supposed to be weed whacking the field and stuff like that. So Dad doesn't do that. They have a town person that does that. So I know how tight they are, man. Metamora. I mean, I just don't want them to come back and say, "Oh, we're gonna need this, we're gonna need that." I mean, I will.
I think that's part of what our initiative would need to be is bringing the EYA, bringing myself, bringing school board members and
You gotta be on board. I mean,
yeah, I mean the youth are the future of the Evergreen community, so hopefully we want to invest in them.
Further questions for Derek who's up there? Any other topic for Derek that we need to, you want to ask him about fields or?
Yeah. The practice football field.
Yep.
And baseball field. Can we get with Tyler, get a 3-year price quote for a 3-year contract to overtake it? And at least show our guys how to run it, maintain it. Because baseball fields.
So maintenance and upkeep is what you're looking
Yeah.
for. You can definitely.
For 3 years. They'll spray it, fertilize it, cut the edges in, so it's not getting out of control. I mean, it's brand new infield. And then the practice football field is full. And I know they just redid it last spring. Last spring they redid it, extended it out the end zone so it was flat, and reseeded it. So we can get that under control.
Absolutely. Yep.
Getting it look like it should.
I can get a quote from Jake ASAP.
If we can get probably 3-year, I would say a 3-year.
Okay.
See what Tyler Athletics would charge.
Any other questions or comments for Derek?
Great job.
Nice job.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Appreciate your efforts, especially with the finances. The interesting situation with finances over the last year, as far as admissions and everything else. Ryan had indicated we're close to break even with athletics, which I think we all a year ago thought that was a pipe dream at best. So thank you.
I can tell you I've had to say a lot of no's. Maybe not everyone feels the same way.
So thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you very much. Mr. Samola.
Just a couple things. Facility preparation is underway to have everything ready for the first day of school on August 18th. I would like to thank everyone who's been working hard this summer, from maintenance and transportation to administrators to the grounds crew, to make sure we are ready to safely start the new year. So just wanted to go on record and thank them. A lot of work being done here this summer. The district office staff annual evaluations are almost complete. My goal is to have the final few meetings this week, so everyone will have their annual evaluation done. And Taher Incorporated is excited to begin working with Evergreen. They have been interviewing chefs to lead our food service program. Once they have 2 finalists, we will meet with them to make the final selection on who the chef will be for the district. And their goal is to have the chef in place by August 1st and be ready to go for the start of the school year. So, any questions?
Schedules come out first week of August.
Sounds correct. I know they're finalizing a couple things, and they should be ready to go.
Any idea why they have to wait till August? Is there a reason they can't have them out?
Part of that
second
is
week of June.
the switch to the traditional schedule and getting everything to fit into place. I know they've been working individually with students who had conflicts on their course request. So we went from having very limited options to multiple, and it's caused some conflicts, which to me is a good problem to have, because first year we have a little bit of headaches, but the next year the courses will still be there and available for everyone except the seniors. So.
Any board members with questions or concerns?
Include the softball field on there.
For sure.
Well, yeah, because they did work out there too. So include all three.
All right. Then at this time, we need a motion for the members of the Evergreen Local Board of Education, superintendent, treasurer, and invited guests to go into executive session for the following reasons: to consider the employment of public employees.
So moved. Support.
Roll call.
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Vaculek,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Mrs. Kiefer.
Yes, motion carries. All right, there should be no action coming out of this meeting. So